I get asked all the time how composers living today actually make money, especially those of us writing for the concert hall rather than film or video games. Now, nobody talked about this when I was in school, not at Juilliard, Columbia, or USC. Money just felt taboo. So here's what I wish someone had shown me, a real example of how a modern concert composer builds a living today. Almost no one, by the way, makes a full-time income from composing alone, and that's not only okay, I actually prefer it. My own career runs on 8 different income streams, all tied to music, and in this video I'll show you what they are and how they fit together into one complete musical life. Alright, so let's get started with the first income stream, and that has to do with what you're watching right now. This is my YouTube ad revenue, and in the year 2025, I've generated a whopping $658.69. Now, this amount is certainly not nothing, but it isn't a huge amount, mostly because my channel is geared towards composers that write concert music, and this is not really a number that I really pay much attention to anyway. Moving on to my second income stream, these are going to be my sheet music sales. This is money made from selling the digital sheet music from my existing catalog of pieces on my website, pieces like my saxophone sonata, my solo pieces, my string quartets, etc. Now, many of these pieces already have sales pages set up where performers and organizations can just go ahead and buy it straight from my website and get an immediate download of the music straight to their email inbox. Other times, someone that wants to perform my pieces contacts me directly to tell me they'd like to play a piece, especially if there's no sales page indicated yet, which tends to happen with really busy composers. And in those cases, I'd often create a new sales page for that particular piece so that future musicians can go ahead and purchase it directly from that new website. Now, in terms of who you can expect to be buying your solo and chamber music from you, you can expect it to be in 3 categories. Now, the first category is going to be your biggest category. That's going to be individual musicians, people like students that are looking to program new music for a recital, or faculty members trying to do the same thing. It could be freelance musicians also trying to program music on their recitals. Any number of one of those options, people will purchase music from your website in that fashion. The second way is from nonprofit organizations. You can think of ensembles that have nonprofit designation. They're often on the smaller side and they're looking for music actively in terms of incorporating new living composers in their repertoire. Then the third example are going to be your big institutions. Think a university buying music for their music library. Think a big orchestra that is looking to get music from you to play on a gala or on a small chamber music recital. So these are going to be your 3 big ticket ways that you can market your music in terms of attracting musicians to play your music. Now, in 2025, I didn't make a concerted effort to try to sell as much of my solo and chamber music as possible, because what ended up happening was I would have inevitably give away a lot of the music, since it was mostly my friends and friends of friends that were requesting the music. So my total amount for 2025 comes out to be $676.50. Now, moving ahead, we're going to go above the $1,000 mark with the next income stream. This category is for miscellaneous composerly things, and it's mostly one-off activities that someone brought me in to be a part of for a very short period of time. Within this category, we have things like lectures, we have things like guest speaking engagements at places like NYU and the New York Youth Symphony. Now, I've always enjoyed coming in for these guest lectures because I love answering questions from students, as well as showing the latest that I'm up to a live group of people. I was also asked to serve on the jury for the Copeland House Residency Award, which is a very full circle moment for me because I previously had won that award over 10 years ago. And the last thing in this miscellaneous category is a page that I'll slowly be shutting down, and that's my Buy Me a Coffee page. Now, a couple of years ago, I compiled lists of some of the best composition colleges in the US, UK, Canada, and Germany, and I basically compiled them in a bunch of spreadsheets that anybody can download for a very small fee. And every once in a while, someone will purchase one of those documents. So between the Buy Me a Coffee page, guest speaking engagements, and serving on juries, I made $1,040.53 in the miscellaneous category. Now, the next 3 income streams I'm about to show you are much higher in terms of dollar amount, but they're super variable from year to year. All right, so the first of these 3 variable income streams is from my adjunct position as the Director of Graduate Composition Studies at New Jersey City University. And what this basically involves is meeting every single week one-on-one to discuss their musical interests and aesthetics, getting them prepared for their master's degree recital, as well as getting them prepared for what they do outside of New Jersey City. And the last thing that we do is we work really, really hard on their master's degree thesis papers, which they have to do at the end of the 2-year term. Now, what I've really enjoyed about this position is getting to know composers that write in very different musical aesthetics, but are still able to go out there and do their thing as composers, get performances, commissions, and all the things that you hope to do as a concert composer. And all in all, this position earned me $8,150 in 2025. Moving on to the next income stream, royalties. Now, royalties can be a little complicated to understand if you haven't dealt with them before, so I want to give you a brief overview. Here in the United States, for example, royalties are collected by institutions called performing rights organizations, or PROs for short. The main ones are ASCAP and BMI, which you may have heard of before. Now, the way that ASCAP and BMI collect royalties is by charging what's called a blanket license fee to any public-facing business. These can be bars, restaurants, and even concert halls. Now, because these businesses paid this blanket licensing fee, that means that these businesses are covered when they perform live music or play recordings of pieces by composers that are registered with these performing rights organizations. And by the way, these PROs cover all different types of composers, from songwriters like Taylor Swift, who's an ASCAP member, to film composers like John Williams, who's a BMI member. Personally, I'm an ASCAP member, and I mostly collect royalties from concert hall performances of my work. But before I share the dollar amount of royalties I earn in 2025, it's important for me to let you know that that figure represents the royalties collected from performances that happened in the previous year in 2024. That's because the cycles of these PROs run in 12-month intervals for concert music. So if you have a piece played today, for example, you won't expect payment for at least another year. Therefore, my royalties for my performances of my music in 2024, which I got paid for in 2025, came out to be $8,174.52. All right, now the last three income streams I'm about to share with you have made up the bulk of my income in 2025. And the first of these three streams come from paid commissions for new work. In 2025, I finished working on 2 commissioned pieces. One was for the California Symphony, and the other was a chamber piece for Ensemble Proton Bern in Switzerland. Along with those 2 pieces, I also began working on another piece for the California Symphony, a piece for the Kansas City Symphony, and a new violin sonata for the concertmaster of the Knoxville Symphony. So this means that I had 5 active commissions happening in 2025, with some of these commissioners paying my fee 50% up front, while other commissioners paid the entire thing at the very end of the project. Now, before I get to the actual number that I made from paid commissions in 2025, I want to bring up the point that there are a lot of expenses related to composing any one new piece of music. Of course, there's the obvious time and effort that goes into physically composing each of these pieces, but there's also a lot of work involved in engraving the piece and delegating the administrative work for each piece that has to get done. Now, this administrative work can include things like printing and shipping all the music, all the time that's spent going back and forth with the commissioners, setting up the terms and conditions for each of these agreements, as well as the time that it takes to set up all the hotel arrangements and travel arrangements for each one of these gigs, essentially. And of course, when I physically fly out to attend the premiere rehearsals and performances of the piece, that is a big chunk of time, usually about a week of time, that takes me away from the other commissioning obligations that I have. So all in all, these factors together mean that commissioning fees are a lot lower than they probably should be at, particularly since a lot of composers in the United States tend to live in big cities with a high cost of living, places like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Now, with all that in mind, in total in 2025, between commissions that I finished and commissions that are still in progress, I collected $33,000. And before we move on, if you'd like my step-by-step guide to getting more performers and ensembles to commission you to write music for them, you can download my guide for free down in the description below. It'll show you exactly how to do it. Now, this leads me to my penultimate income stream, which if I had to pick one thing to describe as my full-time day job, it would be this position. And that is my teaching position at Columbia University, where I've worked full-time for the past 3 years. Now, one of my favorite parts of working at Columbia is teaching a class called Music Humanities. All the students in this class are undergraduates in fields other than music, studying things like economics, chemistry, art history, you name it. And the goal of this class isn't to teach music theory or orchestration or any other technical music skills. Instead, we focus on hearing music in a critical way and comparing and contrasting it with other types of music from across history. So we do things like take field trips to the Metropolitan Opera, and sometimes sometimes I've even been able to take students to concerts with my own music on it. But the thing I love hearing every semester is students telling me things like that they didn't expect to enjoy the class, and they didn't expect to take much away from it, and they didn't expect liking the specific pieces that I showed during that semester. Not to mention, it's really fun introducing them to modern composers like Thomas Adès, Andrew Norman, Garrick Frederick Haas, people like that. Always interesting to see their reaction to hearing that kind of music for the very first time. So between teaching in the spring and fall semesters at Columbia University, I earned $72,115.50. And this brings us to my 8th and final income stream, which is the online academy I run for concert composers, which I call the Composer's Brain System. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you've probably heard me talk about this academy, which is built for developing composers that want to earn commissions, performances, and recognition for their work in the concert music field. I started this academy in the summer of 2024, so 2025 actually has been my first full year of running it. And composers in this program have seen amazing results happen. One of my composers, Sasha, just lined up 3 commissions for 2026 to write for his local symphony and choir. Another one of my composers set up 10 guaranteed performances of new works in 2026 by collaborating directly with professional musicians in his local area. And these couple of results are just the tip of the iceberg and just reflect a couple of results that we just got for our composers in the program. So if you want to learn how this all works, you can click on the link in the description below. Now, just like writing commission compositions, running your own business like this comes with a lot of expenses. This includes things like hiring contractors to help with back-end setup of the academy, subscription fees for software and support services, and courses I myself have taken to develop my own skills at running an online business. So in 2025, those business expenses, not counting taxes by the way, came out to $48,146.82. And my total revenue, which comprises of both one-on-one consults and tuition fees for the program, comes out to be $98,097, which brings my net income to $49,950. All right, now that we've gone through all my income streams, it's time for the final tally and breakdown. But before we get to that, if there's only one thing you take away from today's video, it should be this. Being an active composer that gets regular commissions and performances, even from top ensembles and performers, doesn't mean you have to be composing every single minute of every single day. In fact, I'm actually very glad I don't have to compose 8, 9, 10, 11 hours a day. For example, if I wanted to make a certain amount every single year, that would mean I have to work on way more than 2 or 3 commissions every year. I'd probably have to work on at least 10 to 15 commissions a year, which would mean that I can't teach at Columbia or New Jersey City University. I can't run my online business and meet all these amazing composers from all over the world. To me, at least, me personally, I feel like I would be missing out on a lot of what this career can unfold for somebody like me. Therefore, it's my opinion that composers should get out there into the world and interact with other people just as much as anyone else, whether it's through their day job, whether it's through teaching, whether it's through anything else that elicits fulfillment in their life. And I firmly believe that there's only so much information I can have in my brain and then process out as music on a page like this. So working all the time, year after year, on 15 new commissions every single year would leave me totally drained in probably just a few years, and I would most likely burn out at that moment. And the reason would be that I just wouldn't have enough external input that I would need to write the type of music that I want to write. That's why I actually think of the other work I do as the perfect balance to my composing. By teaching at universities, creating YouTube content, mentoring composers through my online program, to me, this feels like I'm giving as much as I am receiving. And the energy and fresh perspective I gain from teaching actually feeds its way right back into my own composing. So in your own life, if you want to be able to have bigger composition projects, gain more recognition in this field, and get more commissions and performances, you need to know this. The aspects of your life that don't directly relate to composition don't necessarily hurt your progress. They can in turn actually be your secret weapons. And so with that all being said, if we add everything up that I earned in 2025, that leads us to a grand total of $221,912.74. And remember, with $48,146.82 in business expenses subtracted from that, that brings my net income for the year 2025 to $173,765.92. And if you want to break that down even further, 75% of that comes from things not directly related to composing, living, but things that still all relate directly to music, while 25% comes directly from composing when you count music sales, royalties, and commissions all combined. So I hope this video gives you a good insight into at least what one working composer does to make their living while trying to keep every single one of their income streams tied directly to music somehow. And if you're asking yourself how you can be more involved in this field, what I'd like you to do next is watch this video right here where I helped one of my students on this 12-month journey of his go from totally obscure to getting more commissions and performances than he himself can handle.